Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we continue reading from the book Beyond Birth and Death by Srila Prabhupada, and we are on chapter 2. And we'll continue reading. So, Veena, I'm not sure if it's okay for you to read. Or of anyone else. I'm sorry. Sonal is joined in too. Sonal, you would like to read?
Hi, Shilpa. No, just give me a few minutes, please. I will read in some time.
Okay. So, Veena, is that okay for you to start? Or
Yes, I will read.
Oh, thank you. Okay, thank you.
From here, where we
Those who are satisfied.
Okay. Those who are satisfied with temporary life, temporary pleasure, and temporary facilities are not to be considered intelligent, at least not according to the Bhagavad Gita. According to the Gita, one whose brain substance is very small is interested in temporary things. We are eternal, so why should we be interested in temporary things? No one wants a non-permanent situation. If we are living in an apartment and the landlord asks us to vacate, we are sorry, but we are not sorry if we move into a better apartment. It's our nature because we are permanent to want a permanent residence. We don't wish to die because in actuality we are permanent, nor do we want to grow old or be deceased because these are all external or non-permanent states. Although we are not meant to suffer from fever, sometimes fever comes and we have to take precautions and remedies to get well again. The fourfold miseries are like a fever and they are all due to material body. If somehow we can get out of the material body, we can escape the miseries that are integral with it.
So it's interesting, no? I mean, intelligence.
I got a little like this also and that also. I did not follow what I was reading.
So let's try to understand what Prabhupada is saying.
Correct.
You know, intelligence, we may consider who is intelligent. Each of us may have different ideas of what does intelligence mean, or if I'm able to do this, or I'm able to accomplish that, that may be a sign of intelligence. And each of us may have different ideas. You know, someone may say, oh, if I can efficiently do certain things in a certain amount of time, then that's intelligence. Or if I can, there are various things. Make X amount of money in certain time, I'm intelligent. Or, you know, or get shortcuts to ways of cooking, then I'm intelligent. So, but what does Bhagavad Gita say? What does
you're not considered intelligent if you are happy with temporary facilities. That's what it's saying.
Yeah, you know. And you know, Bhagavatam and the scriptures keep repeating. Bhagavatam says that those who are intelligent, they in the age of Kali will worship Lord Krishna, who comes as Lord Chaitanya, by doing the Harinam Sankirtan. So now Bhagavatam was spoken 5,000 years ago. And it was already predicting that Lord Chaitanya will come in this age of Kali. Lord Chaitanya came 500 years ago. And Bhagavatam says that those who are intelligent will worship the Lord by this Harinam Sankirtan, chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. And Krishna himself also says that, so many places in Bhagavad Gita, that those who are intelligent take up this devotional service with determination. So this is what's the sign of intelligence according to Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, why Why should we not be just happy with temporary situations? Why? With the temporary adjustment.
Because we are permanent. We are the permanent soul.
Yeah, that's right. We are the soul. We are permanent. We are eternal. Yeah, that's right. And Prabhupada is pointing out, in our experience, we have always seen people die, people getting old, people getting sick, even we ourselves getting old, getting sick. But we don't want these things. Somehow or the other, we don't want to get sick. We don't want to die. We don't want to get old. We do all sorts of things to stop ourselves from getting old. Why? If it's a natural thing, if we know people around us are always doing it, why can't we just accept it? Why can't we accept it?
Because we are looking for a temporary happiness from outside, from the outside world.
That's right. But why can't we accept that, oh, I have to become old? Why can't we accept, oh, diseases will come? Or why can't we
Mataji,
accept I have to die?
ignorance is bliss.
Ignorance is bliss. Okay. Okay, the reason we can't accept it is because we are eternal. And the soul is eternal, never dies, never becomes old, never gets any disease. So, that's the nature of the soul. And so whatever is happening to the body, we are somehow not able to accept it. Why? Because deep down we know we are the soul. Of course, right now we are thinking we are the body and working in such ways. That's a different thing. Now, fourfold miseries. Does anyone know what are the fourfold miseries of material life? We say, oh, it's such a hassle. I got stuck up in traffic. Traffic is a problem. Or, yeah, we have so many problems that we come up with. But what are the real problems of material life? Anyone?
Birth,
Birth,
birth.
old age. Sorry.
Go on,
Yes, birth,
Rashmi.
old age. Yeah.
Disease and death.
Correct.
Thank you. That's right. Yes, thank you, both of you. Those are the fourfold misery. Those are the real problems of life. And those are the problems that we need to get a solution, because we are trying to find solution to so many problems. We'll have apps that they make things quicker, or it takes me longer to transport by bullock cart. Let's have planes, or let's have cars or supercars or planes and faster planes. But the real miseries are this. So Prabhupada is saying, if somehow or the other we can get out of the material body, we can escape the miseries that are integral with it. So as long as we are in the material world, we are going to have a material body. It's like if we go scuba diving under the ocean, we need to wear that special gear. Otherwise, we won't be able to survive in the ocean. So because we are in this material atmosphere, we need a material body. Whatever atmosphere we live in, we need a suitable body. So the material body is because we are in this material atmosphere. Now, if we get out of this material atmosphere and go back home, back to Godhead, then we don't have to suffer these miseries of the material world, birth, death, old age, and disease. So let's continue. Let's see further.
For the impersonalists to get out of this temporary body, Krishna here advises that they vibrate the syllable Om. In this way, they can be assured of transmigration into the spiritual world. However, although they may enter the spiritual world, they cannot enter into any of the planets there. They remain outside in the Brahma Jyoti. The Brahma Jyoti may be compared to the sunshine, and the spiritual planets may be compared to the sun itself. In the spiritual sky, the impersonalists, it's like going. In the spiritual sky, the impersonalists remain in the effulgence of the Supreme Lord. The Brahma Jyoti. The impersonalists are placed in the Brahma Jyoti as spiritual sparks. In this way, the Brahma Jyoti is filled with spiritual sparks. This is what is meant by merging into the spiritual existence. It should not be considered that one merges into the Brahma Jyoti in the sense of becoming one with it. The individuality of the spiritual spark is retained, but because the impersonalist does not want to take a personal form, he is found as a spiritual spark in that effulgence. Just as the sunshine is composed of so many atomic particles, so the Brahma Jyoti is composed of so many spiritual sparks.
So now,
However, as
Prabhupada,
living entities, yeah,
I'm sorry,
sure.
sorry,
Explain.
let's try to,
Yeah.
because this is something which
Understand.
is really important. Now, what happens is, some of us may get so frustrated with the miseries of life that we were just speaking of, that we may say, well, I don't want to be a person anymore. I don't want to exist anymore. I'm done with it. I don't want to exist anymore. And so then we may get an idea that after I die, after I get liberated, I'm going to become one with the Supreme. I'm going to merge into the light. And that's what is the idea of many people when they say mukti. Because the frustration is so much that that we don't want to remain an individual anymore. But then that is immature because we don't understand what does spiritual mean. Spiritual means eternal. So because we are spiritual, we are eternal. At no point can we not exist. Even though we may want to, we may pray for it, but no, we can't not exist. We have been existing eternally. So the idea of mukti, as is very popular, is not a very permanent situation. Not permanent. Why? Because what does that mean is that the soul simply enters into the light, the Brahma Jyoti, the Brahman, which is coming from the body of Krishna. And then the soul, because he doesn't want to remain an individual anymore, he just sits there in the Brahma Jyoti for maybe, depending whatever time, millions of years or a few hundred years or a few thousand years. But eventually, because the material desires are still there, the soul will come back to the material world to again begin activity. For example, what's the difference between a living body and a dead body?
There is no soul or no life. That's all.
Yeah, that's right. So when you say no soul or no life, what is a dead body doing and what is the living body doing?
Consciousness.
Consciousness, that's right. And because of this consciousness, what's happening?
You cannot function.
That's right. The dead body, this doesn't move. But the soul is always, because the living body, as we say, it's always moving. No? We are always doing something or the other. The dead body doesn't move. But a person who's living is always up to doing something. So we cannot not do anything. So the doing activity part is not with the body, it's with the soul. Because if activity was with the body, then the dead body should move. Make sense? Yeah. So it's the soul that is always active. Now, we may get so frustrated and say, oh, I don't want to do anything. I want to annihilate my individuality. I don't want to be an individual anymore. I'm going to go into the light of the Supreme Lord. And like that, I'm going to merge into his existence and I'm going to become the Supreme Lord. All that is an idea. Sure, we may enter into the light, but we can never become the Supreme Lord. We will still continue to remain individuals as atomic particles because we are eternal, we are spiritual. So we cannot be cut, we cannot be changed, there's no mutation, nothing. So we are eternally individuals, can't change, can't become the Supreme Lord. So then that idea is just like a phantasmagoria kind of. And because we are always active, the soul stays there in the Brahma Jyoti for some time, thinking that, okay, and now I'm the Supreme, I'm this or I'm that. But after some time, because it needs activity, The soul comes back to the material world. So it's not a permanent position, it's a temporary position. Now let's understand, what is this Brahma Jyoti? What is this Brahman? Anyone?
The Brahma Jyoti is I think it's the light emanating from the body of
Mhm.
Sorry, you got cut off, Roshi. A light emanating from the body of?
Krishna. Krishna's
That's
aura.
right. Yes, Krishna's aura. Perfect. Thank you. That's the light emanating from the body of Krishna. Just like we have the sun planet, and then there is sunshine. If we say no, there is only sunshine. It's when it's really, I don't know if you'll have tried, when the sun is really blazing and we try to look up in the sky, we can't see the sun itself because the light is so bright. We can't see the sun, but just the light. So in that position, if we say, oh, there's just light, there's no sun, I mean, we are partially right, but then we are partially wrong too, isn't it? Sure, because our vision is covered, so we can't see the sun, and the only thing we can see the light. So similarly, people may think that God is light, but that understanding of God is very partial. It's a very preliminary understanding. The complete understanding is to understand that God is a person, and the light is coming from his body, and he's pervading this entire universe. He's entered into every atom of the universe as the Paramatma. And he's also sitting in our hearts as the Paramatma. That's the complete understanding of God. So as it said here, the Brahma Jyoti is the sunshine. So we see up in the sky, we see the sky and we see the stars and the planets situated in the sky. So this is the material sky. Similarly, there is a spiritual sky. The spiritual sky, which is called the Brahma Jyoti, as we just said. That's the light coming from Krishna's body. And there are many planets in this light. They are the Vaikuntha planets. They are the spiritual planets. There are innumerable of such planets. So what the impersonalists do is they just reach up to the sky, just reaching up to the light. But we need to reach up to the planet, enter into the spiritual planet. Because if we just reach up to the sky, it's temporary. Prabhupada would say, we take a spaceship, we go out in the space. How long can we be in the spaceship? We'll circle around for a long time. But we have to enter into one of the planets, whichever planet it may be. Similarly, the transcendentalists, spiritualists, how long can they remain in the spiritual sky? Have to enter into one of the spiritual planets. Yeah. So that is what the idea is, that we are always individuals, always. Prabhupada is saying, this is what is meant by merging in the spiritual existence. It should not be considered that one merges into the Brahma Jyoti in the sense of becoming one with it. So even if one enters the spiritual sky, doesn't mean that he has become the sky. He remains an individual spiritual spark. But because he does not want to have a body anymore, he does not get a spiritual body. He just remains as a spark. Is that okay?
Right.
Yes. Okay, because, the very popular idea is, oh, I'm going to become the light. That's what's the popular idea. But no, we don't have to become anything. We just have to realize who we are. And we have to go back home, back to Godhead.
A question. You just mentioned that in the Brahma Jyoti, the spirit souls who go there, are they still thinking and feeling? Is that right?
Yes, of course. The spirit soul
So
is there always. The soul will always be conscious.
So the people who go to the Brahma Jyoti still don't lose their individuality.
Never. Never.
Okay.
Because individuality can never be lost. That is who we are. We are eternally individuals. We are spirit souls. So we can never ever stop being an individual. Even though we may want it, try for it, beg for it, never going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
In fact, what self-realization means to find out what is this true individuality. Instead of trying to annihilate this individuality, which we may try to in a matter of frustration, because this material world may frustrate us. So instead of, as in frustration, one may stop their individuality, the sign of intelligence is to understand, I'm an individual, so let me find out my identity. Who am I? Who is God? Why am I suffering? What's my relationship with God? Yes? Makes sense?
However, as living entities, we want enjoyment. However, as living entities, we want enjoyment. Being in itself is not enough. We want bliss, ananda, as well as being sat. In his entirety, the living entity is composed of three qualities: eternality, knowledge, and bliss. Those who enter impersonally into the Brahma Jyot can remain there for some time in full knowledge that they are now merged homogeneously with Brahman. But they cannot have that eternal Ananda, bliss, because that part is wanting. He may remain alone in a room for some time and may enjoy himself by reading a book or engaging in some thought, but it is not possible to remain in that room for years and years at a time, and certainly not for all eternity. The same thing that you explained just now, that one may want to join, but you may enter the light, Brahma Jyot, but you may not be there forever. Therefore, for one who emerges impersonally into the existence of the Supreme, there is every chance of falling down again into the material world in order to acquire some association. This is the verdict of Srimad Bhagavatam. Astronauts may travel thousands and thousands of miles, but if they do not find rest on some planet, they have to return again to Earth. In any case, rest is required. It is in the impersonal form, rest is uncertain. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavatam says that even after so much endeavor, if the impersonalist enters into the spiritual world and acquires an impersonal form, he returns again into the material world because of neglecting to serve the Supreme Lord in love and devotion. As long as we are here on earth, we must learn to practice to love and serve Krishna, the Supreme Lord. If we learn this, we can enter into those spiritual planets. The impersonalist position in the spiritual world is non-permanent. For out of loneliness, he will attempt to acquire some association. Because he does not associate personally with the Supreme Lord, he has to return again to the world and associate with conditioned living entities.
So, Satchid Ananda, that is the nature of the soul. We are Satchidananda. Why? Because Krishna is Satchidananda. Of course, we are minute. Our size is 1/10,000, the tip of the hair. The Vedas inform us our size. If we want to understand what's the size of the soul, 1/10,000, the tip of the hair. That's our size. We can't change it. No way can we change it. And the size of Krishna is unlimited. Unlimited. So Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat, eternal. Chit, full of knowledge. Ananda, bliss. Now, what happens once those who enter the Brahma Jyoti, for sure they have knowledge. Oh, I'm not. Knowledge means, oh, I'm not matter, I'm spirit soul. So the knowledge is there, okay, I'm spirit soul, I'm spirit soul. But how long can we keep on saying that, oh, I'm spirit soul, I'm spirit soul? And as Prabhupada is saying, and we know, we were just discussing, we need some activity, some association. So how long can we just sit down and say, I'm spirit soul, I'm spirit soul? No, we have to do something. And because the knowledge is not there of the spiritual world, the knowledge is not there of Krishna, again, even though reaching the spiritual sky, the impersonalists will fall down to the material world, because the knowledge is only of the material world. So now that goes to show that if we want to enter the spiritual planet, we have to engage in bhakti, love and devotion to Krishna. Love and devotion to the Lord. That's how we can enter the spiritual world. Now we may say, but I don't want to. Well, that's okay. That's our choice. And that's the reason we are here in the material world. And we will continue to remain in the material world till the time we do not revive this love for Krishna. Something to understand, no? Okay, the spiritual world is there. I'm a spirit soul. Why am I not in the spiritual world? Why am I inside this material world? So Prabhupada would explain to us, this material world is like a prison house. There's a country, say Panama. One portion of that country, there is a jailhouse. Some citizens are in there. Other citizens are all free. So why some citizens are in the prison? Why? Because they went against the rules. So there's some rectification needed. And once they are rectified, they're rectified, then they can be let out again into the normal society. So similarly, this material world is for us to reform. Reform what? Because right now we are thinking we are separate than Krishna. We have forgotten that we have an eternal loving relationship with Krishna. And to revive that relationship, we are put here in the material world. And this relationship can easily be revived by hearing and chanting. By chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, we can easily revive our relationship with Krishna. So that's what Prabhupada is saying. As long as we are here on earth, we must learn to practice to love and serve Krishna, the Supreme Lord. The endeavor is required. We were just reading in the morning that we have to endeavor. No? We can't say, oh, what to do? I don't have love and devotion. Yeah, it's true. We have it in our heart, but to revive it, we need to do something. And what is that something? That is to hear and chant. It's not going to come automatically, because if it had to, it would have. But it's not going to come. That we have to practice it. Like for example, the athletes, they practice. They practice for years and years so that they can have their moment of glory when they are running for the Olympics. So practice is required. It just doesn't come automatically. Is that okay?
Mhm. It is of utmost importance, therefore, that we know the nature of our constitutional position. We want eternity, complete knowledge, and also pleasure. When we are left alone for a long time in the impersonal Brahma Jyoti, we cannot have pleasure, and therefore we accept the pleasure given by the material world. But in Krishna consciousness, real pleasure is enjoyed. In the material world, it is generally accepted that the highest pleasure is sex. This is a perverted reflection of the sex pleasure in the spiritual world, the pleasure of association with Krishna. But we should not think that the pleasure there is like the sex pleasure in the material world. No, it is different. But unless sex life is there in the spiritual world, it cannot be reflected here. It is simply a perverted reflection, but the actual life is there in Krishna, who is full of all pleasure. Therefore, the best process is to train ourselves now so that at the time of death, we may transfer ourselves to the spiritual universe, to Krishna Loka, and there associated with Krishna. In Brahma Samhita, Sri Krishna and his abode are described. Chintamani Prakare Sadmasu Kalpavriksha Lakshavatreshu Surabhir Abhipadayantam Lakshmi Sahasra Shata Sambrahma Sepyamanam Govindam Adi Purusham Tam Aham Bhajami. I worship Govinda, primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending the cows fulfilling all desire in abodes built with spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of wish-fulfilling trees, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds and thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis.
So here, now Prabhupada is saying that, okay, we are Satchidananda, and we are longing for that. We want that to be eternally happy. Ananda, no? We want complete knowledge. We want to be eternal. We don't want to die. We want to be eternally happy. We don't want this temporary happiness, sometimes suffering. That also we have to work so hard to get this happiness. Why? We should always be happy. So anyway, so we may get knowledge up to the Brahmajyoti, but now we are understanding that even in the Brahmajyoti, we can't live there forever. Because if we have not revived our spiritual consciousness, we have not heard about Krishna, we don't know about spiritual world, then we won't know how to go there. We'll go back where we know. Even here, what we know, we'll do that. So, because the impersonalist, he only has the idea of the material world. So to get some kind of enjoyment, some kind of activity, some kind of association, he just comes to the material world. But the real pleasure is in Krishna consciousness. Krishna is the reservoir of all pleasure. Where does pleasure come from? Who's the source of all pleasure? We all want pleasure, we all want to enjoy, but where's the source? That's Krishna. It's coming from Krishna. Like, where's the source of water? We may get drops of water, but then they make us think, but a drop of water is not satisfying me. I want a good supply of water. Then we try to look for the source of water, isn't it? We may go to the lake or the reservoir of water. So pleasure, happiness, where can we get that? That's with Krishna. He's the reservoir. Then here Prabhupada is explaining to us that the highest pleasure here that we can experience in the material world is sex pleasure. That's what keeping us here in the material world. Now we have to understand that the material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. So whatever is the highest in the spiritual world shows to be the lowest here in the material world. So the love which is there in the spiritual world, that's perverted into lust here as in the material world. There's love in the spiritual world that's perverted, and its perverted reflection is lust. And that's what we have got in it here now. Yeah, so Prabhupada is saying that there is sex pleasure in the spiritual world also, but it's not perverted like it is here, because that is based on true love. And here we don't even have experience of true love in this material world. Because the material world cannot have something that the spiritual world does not have. The material world is a reflection, but the reality is in the spiritual world. Here is only perverted. That's something we have to understand. Now, with our perverted minds, we may begin to think, oh, that means there is sex life in the spiritual world. But then again, we will think it in a perverted way because that's how we know it. Without trying to understand that spiritual world actually is a world of love, not lust. All the relationships there are based on love, not lust. The sex life that Prabhupada is mentioning there is nothing like what we have it here. It's nothing like that. Here is just a perverted reflection. Yeah? So then that's why Prabhupada is saying, okay, then we should train ourselves to go to the spiritual world. The spiritual world where Lord Brahmaji is saying, the spiritual world, Krishna is there, Govinda, he's with his cows, and there are these trees, the Kalpavriksha, wish-fulfilling trees, and then there are these palaces. It's not that it's empty. Not spiritual world is Om Shanti Shanti, nothing to do, only light. No, there's houses. Here the houses are made of iron, cement, whatever. Over there, they're made of Chintamani, spiritual jewels, which are like so valuable, we won't even be able to understand what's the value of them. Wish-fulfilling trees, they can fulfill any desire that we have. They are the Surabhi cows. The cows can give us as much milk as we want. And he's being served with affection by hundreds and thousands of Lakshmis. These Lakshmis are the gopis. The gopis are the original goddesses of fortune. And the Lakshmis who are there with Narayan, they are expansion of the gopis. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
This is a description of Krishna Loka. The houses are made of what is called touchstone. Chintamani must be. Whatever touchstone touches immediately turns into gold. The trees are wish-fulfilling trees or desired trees. So for one can receive from them whatever he wishes. In this world, we get mangoes from mango trees and apples from apple trees, but there from any tree one can get whatever he desires. Similarly, the cows are called Surabhi and they yield an endless supply of milk. These are descriptions of the spiritual planets found in Vedic scriptures.
Yeah, so this is not just made up, it's not imagination. They are there, the authorities are telling us about it. Brahmaji is telling us that he's seen it. It's like there are two people there's one villager and his friend comes back from America. And he keeps telling the villager, in America, there are these cars and there's whatever, there is the Times Square and there is the Statue of Liberty. So he describes it because he's seen it. Now if the villager says, oh, but I don't trust you, I don't believe you because I haven't seen it, well, then it's the villager's loss, right? The person is come from America, he's telling him how does America look like, but if he doesn't want to believe, and it's not going to change the way America looks because the villager doesn't believe. So here, the friend who's come from America is an authority. He's telling, hey, I've seen it. This is how it looks. So we are also hearing from authorities. Brahmaji is an authority. The Vedas, the scriptures are authorities. And they're telling us how the spiritual world looks. Whether we believe in it or not, whether we have faith in it or not, we cannot change the way the spiritual world looks. The spiritual world is not going to change according to our imagination or our desire. It is what it is. It's absolute. It's on the transcendental platform.
In this material world, we have become acclimatized to birth, death, and all sorts of suffering. Material scientists have discovered many facilities for sense enjoyment and destruction, but they have discovered no solution to the problems of old age, disease, and death. They cannot make any machine that will check death, old age, or disease. We can manufacture something that will accelerate death, but nothing that will stop death. Those who are intelligent, however, are not concerned with the fourfold miseries of material life, but with elevation to the spiritual planets. One who is continuously in trance or nitya yuktasya yoginaha does not divert his attention to anything else. He is always situated in trance. His mind is always filled with the thought of Krishna without deviation. Ananya Cheta Satatam. Satatam refers to anything, anywhere, and anytime.
So Prabhupada is pointing out that, here we are just accepting birth, death, old age, and disease, whereas we don't want to. We don't want to. And then we are busy trying to make some kind of temporary adjustment. Oh, I don't want to get old. Let me try this treatment, this thing, that thing. So many things we try. Oh, I don't want disease. We try so many things. So Prabhupada is saying a sign of intelligence is because we can't stop it. We can't stop birth, death, old age, and disease, no matter how much we want to stop in the material world. The only way, if we really don't want these things, is we have to go back to the spiritual world. That's the only way we'll be able to stop ourselves experiencing this birth, death, old age, and disease. So how can we do that? fixed mind on Krishna. Krishna says, Manmana bhava mad bhakto, always think of me, become my devotee. Now, how will we always think of Krishna? We can only think of something that we love doing, we like doing, we love someone. Our thoughts are always filled with those things. We're always thinking of someone we are attached to, or So how can we bring this attachment to Krishna?
Always thinking.
Yes, how? What will help us to always think of Krishna?
By chanting his holy name.
Thank you. Yes. Yes. Continuously hearing and chanting. Hearing about Krishna, chanting his holy name. Yes. Thank you. So we continue reading. I'm sorry, did
In
anyone
India,
else want to read? Sorry.
Yeah, please. Sonal, you said you would lead later.
I could read. Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
In India, I lived in Vrindavana and now I am in America. But this does not mean that I am out of Vrindavana, because if I think of Krishna always, then I'm always in Vrindavana, regardless of the material designation. Krishna consciousness means that one always lives with Krishna on that spiritual planet, Goloka Vrindavana, and that one is simply waiting to give up this material body. Samarati Nityasya means continuously remembering, and for one who's continuously remembering Krishna, the Lord becomes Tashyam Shulabha, easily purchased. Krishna, the Lord, becomes, I'm just repeating that. Krishna himself says that he is easily purchased by this bhakti yoga process. Then why should we take to any other process? We can chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, 24 hours daily. There are no rules and regulations. One can chant in the street, in the subway, or at his home or office. There is no tax and no expense. So why not take to it?
So Prabhupada is putting a good argument, no? He's putting a very good argument that there are no rules and regulations to chant Hare Krishna. By chanting Hare Krishna, we'll be able to remember Krishna continuously. And then if we are able to remember Krishna, we can be with Krishna all the time. Means even while we are in the body, because our consciousness is with Krishna, our consciousness is spiritual. As Prabhupada is saying, he's always in Vrindavan. This is the consciousness of a pure devotee. Even though Srila Prabhupada was in New York and the devotees were telling Prabhupada, we are so sorry that you have to see all this. Well, they were not in a very good neighborhood, so it was not a very nice scene. So the devotees were apologizing to Prabhupada for it, and Prabhupada said, I don't see anything. I'm always in Vrindavan. His consciousness is always in Vrindavan because he's a pure devotee of Krishna. His consciousness is always with Krishna. He's always with Krishna. So Prabhupada is saying, even we can come to that platform. Why not come to this platform, Srila Prabhupada is saying? Why should we always be with anxiety and lamentation and birth, death, old age, and disease? Why not take up the chanting of the holy name? When one can chant anywhere at any time. Any comments? Questions? If no, then we can go on to chapter 3.
Okay, liberation from material planets. The Jananis and yogis are generally impersonalist, and although they attain the temporary form of liberation by emerging into the impersonal effulgence, the spiritual sky, according to Srimad Bhagavatam, their knowledge is not considered pure. By penances, austerities, and meditation, they can rise up to the platform of the Supreme Absolute, but as has been explained, they again fall down to the material world because they have not taken to Krishna's personal features seriously. Unless one worships the lotus feet of Krishna, he again has to descend to the material platform. The ideal attitude should be, I am your eternal servitor. Please let me somehow engage in your service. Krishna is called Ajita, unconquerable, for no one can conquer God, but according to Srimad Bhagavatam, one with this attitude easily conquers the Supreme. Srimad Bhagavatam also recommends that we give up this futile process to measure the Supreme. We cannot even measure the limitations of space. What to speak of the Supreme? It is not possible to measure the length and breadth of Krishna by one's minuscule knowledge, and one who arrives at this conclusion is considered intelligent by Vedic literature. One should come to understand submissively that he is a very insignificant segment of this universe. Abandoning the endeavor to understand the Supreme by limited knowledge or mental speculation, we should become submissive and hear of the Supreme through authoritative sources such as the Bhagavad Gita or through the lips of a realized soul.
So Prabhupada is helping us understand, we may take the path of the process of knowledge, gyan, or dhyan, the yoga process. But what happens with this process, our realization of God is going to be limited only up to the impersonal. If we rely on our minds to understand who's God without hearing about him from Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam, the only conclusion we can reach up to is that God is light. We cannot go further than that. It's like, a university which has only, sorry, not university, it's just a school. So the school is only, say, till 12th grade. There is no higher education in that school. If you need higher education, you have to go to undergrad school, to a college. So, because our mind is, after all, material. It's material. And we are 1/10,000 the tip of the hair. And we commit so many mistakes. So even if we can perfectly try to understand, I'm not the body, I'm the soul, the only conclusion we can reach up to is that God is light. We cannot understand that God is a person if we just rely on our own mind, our own speculative process, or hearing from people who are just using logic or speculation, not speaking from Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita. But again, that is a temporary position, as we heard, no? We can reach up to the Brahma Jyoti. That's temporary. We are going to come back again. And why? Because the knowledge is imperfect, actually. We have not completely understood our real position. Our real position is Jivera Swarupaya Krishna Nityadas. We are eternally servants of Krishna, parts and parcels of Krishna. Now we say, why should I be a servant? I want to be the boss. Why should I be Krishna's servant? Well, we don't want to be his servant. That's why we are here in the material world. And till the time we don't accept this, we are going to continue remaining in the material world. Because the choice is ours. The choice is ours, whether we want to be in the material world or spiritual world. Krishna does not force us. But yes, he comes time and time again to give us this knowledge. He sends his devotees to give us this knowledge. Also, we have to understand, the relationship between master and servant in the material world may not be a very pleasing one, maybe one which is situated in abuse or neglect. But in the spiritual world, it's a relationship of love. As we were just saying, no, because we love our family, we serve them. We love our child, so we serve them. So we are a servant of our child. Why? Because we love them. We are a servant of our spouse. Why? Because we love them. So it's based on love. This service is a symptom of love, not that Krishna is taking advantage of us or anything. And Krishna loves us, and he serves us in return. We see in the picture of Bhagavad Gita, he's the driver of his devotee, Arjuna. And he's celebrated as that, Partha Sarthi. It's its name. He takes great pleasure in being called as a driver of his devotee. So it is a relationship of love. But because if we take the Gyan process or Yoga process, we are not able to revive this relationship. We don't have any knowledge of this relationship. So our knowledge is still imperfect. And so that's the reason, even though reaching up to the spiritual sky, because the knowledge is not yet perfect, it's still a temporary position, and we fall down again to the material world. Because the truth of the matter is that we are all eternal servants of Krishna. Jivara Swarupa, Krishna Nityadas. And once when we accept it, then we can engage in devotional service and in fact conquer the unconquerable. Yeah, that's what Prabhupada is saying. That Bhagavatam says that Krishna is Ajita, unconquerable. He's the most powerful. Nobody can defeat him but the pure devotee. Pure devotee can. He's completely under the control of his devotee. The gopis would clap their hands and Krishna would dance. They would tell Krishna, you dance. He's the Supreme Lord. And so, but they're telling him, you dance, we are clapping. So it's a relationship of love. So we need to hear Bhagavatam, hear Bhagavad Gita from the pure devotee. As we are hearing now from Srila Prabhupada, he's a pure devotee. So always hearing from the pure devotees.
In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is hearing about God from the lips of Sri Krishna himself. In this way, Arjuna set the criterion for understanding the Supreme by submissive hearing. It is our position to hear the Bhagavad Gita from the lips of Arjuna or his bona fide representative, the spiritual master. After hearing, it is necessary to practice this acquired knowledge in daily life. My dear Lord, you are unconquerable, the devotee prays, but by this process, by hearing, you are conquered. God is unconquerable, but he is conquered by the devotee who abandons mental speculation and listens to authoritative sources.
And so what is Prabhupada telling us? What happens when we hear about Krishna?
That Krishna is unconquerable.
Yes, that's right. He's unconquerable. He's called Ajit.
And by the process and by hearing and chanting, Krishna can be conquered by the devotees.
Yeah, that's right. By hearing about him, chanting his name, he becomes conquered. So this is the process. Hearing and chanting. So and Prabhupada points out here that Arjuna has set the criterion for understanding. So what kind of hearing it should be?
Submissive hearing.
Thank you. Thank you.
According to the Brahma Samhita, there are two ways of acquiring knowledge: the ascending process and the descending process. By the ascending process, one is elevated by knowledge acquired by himself. In this way, one thinks, I don't care for any authorities or books. I will attain knowledge myself by meditation, philosophy, etc. In this way, I will understand God. The other process, the descending process, involves receiving knowledge from higher authorities. The Brahma Samhita states that if one takes to the ascending process and travels at the speed of mind and wind for millions of years, he will still end up not knowing. For him, the subject matter will remain elusive and inconceivable. But the subject matter is given in the Bhagavad Gita, Ananya Cheta. Krishna says to meditate on him without deviation from the path of devotional service in submission. For one who worships him in this way, Tashyama Sulabha, I become easily available. This is the process. If one works for Krishna 24 hours a day, Krishna cannot forget him. By becoming submissive, he can attract the attention of God. As Guru Maharaja Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati used to say, don't try to see God. Is God to come and stand before us like a servant just because we want to see him? This is not the submissive way. We have to oblige him by our love and service.
So how many processes here Prabhupada is mentioning? That Brahma Samhita says how many processes are there to acquire knowledge?
Ascending and descending.
Yes, that's right. Thank you. And what is the ascending process?
Is one who is elevated by knowledge is ascending, no? By knowledge, he wants to know Krishna.
So what does he do? And what does he not do?
He just reads the books, and then he wants to know Krishna, but not with his service and love to Krishna.
But what kind of books he's reading?
Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita.
So in ascending, because what happens is when you're reading Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, that's also hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So the one in ascending, what he's thinking is, I'm not going to hear from Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. I'm not going to read Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. I'm going to read some other philosophy. There was something. And in this way, I will come to understand who's God.
Correct.
And I will do some meditation and I'll do some philosophy and I will understand God. And what is the other way?
By meditation.
The other way is the descending process.
Descending process.
Yeah. And what does descending process mean?
Involves receiving knowledge from higher authorities, like from
That's
the
right.
ascending. Yeah.
Yes, receiving knowledge from the higher authorities. Like right now, we are hearing knowledge from Srila Prabhupada. We are receiving knowledge of Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita from Srila Prabhupada, who is an authority.
Correct.
You know, and then we are hearing Brahma Samhita. Srila Prabhupada is putting evidence also, Brahma Samhita, Bhagavatam. So it's all authorities. So that's the proper way to receive knowledge. Not that we say, I can do it. Because our mind is material after all, so we won't be able to understand God. But when we hear about God from the proper authorities, then automatically we will be able to understand God. That's the idea. Yes, it's that idea. Because devotional service begins by hearing. Hearing. Yeah. By hearing, that is the beginning of devotional service. Hearing, when we have heard properly, we can chant. When we hear and chant properly, we can remember Krishna. And then Prabhupada points out, because so many of us say, oh, I want to see God. I haven't seen God. Why can't I see God? Well, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say, you think God is your servant, that he should come whenever you want to see him. You attract him. No? Attract God by your service, by your devotion. Then God will come. Krishna will come. So, are there any questions or comments? Let's stop here for today. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta ki jai, Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in and for your